Hi, welcome to Vista Serena, so called because, as you can see from the top, it's got quite a serene view. We're down here in the valley at the moment, where it's more sheltered. We get a lot of wind at the top, and we're creating a more protected garden down here, and the soil is also an awful lot better down here, understandably. Apart from being our home and new garden since the beginning of last year, it's also a bit of an environmental project to restore about 7.5 acres of land that was previously eucalyptus plantation mainly, which doesn't do the native habitat any good at all, and is a terrible fire risk in the summer. And in fact in 2017 all this area was completely burnt out. So all this is new growth, and this in fact is new growth since we cleared it about 3 months ago. It was full of eucalyptus, mimosa and broom and all sorts of things. Things bounce back very quickly here. We're in Atlantic Mediterranean zone 9B, so it's generally a good few degrees warmer than England, but similar kind of changeable weather. In the summer it can get extremely hot for quite long periods, so one has to choose carefully and choose the right situation to plant each thing, so that it's not going to get too stressed either by wind or by the very hot sun and the drought. During the winter, however, it can be pretty wet for quite a few months on and off, so that's good. So it's good growing weather. So that's the project, to try and allow the wildflowers that have been suppressed here by the trees for years to come back, and they have come back very quickly, and we've got a tremendous variety of wild plants here now. And apart from that, to introduce one or two plants from other countries that will live alongside happily without becoming dominant. So that's the project in its early days. The first thing we had to do was to level out a piece of land at the top so that we could build a little house. It's somewhat against our principles of no dig that we want to adopt, but I didn't use a spade here. Around and about there are already lots of wildflowers growing. These are some of them that are out in the month of May. This is what the land used to be like before we started clearing, and then in 2017 huge fires ripped across and cleared the whole lot for us. Then by last year a lot of them were coming back. This is quaking grass, beautiful, and many of these plants I have yet to find out the name of. This is a rock rose, very dominant. Wild lavender, of course, broom, nice in small quantities, but again very invasive, and a very beautiful kind of gentian here. There's little squills, lots of those down in the valley where it's a bit more moist. So we want to allow a lot of these to take over to a certain extent and blend in some other plants. This is a Campanula lusitanica. Around the house, because of the levelling of the land, all the topsoil had gone, such as it was, and it's full of this stone and a kind of brown slate. So all the gardening to begin with was by pickaxe, no other way to make a hole. The soil is very acidic around here, hence get a lot of bracken and pine. Then we introduced some of these plants to start making a Mediterranean garden around the house with the poor soil. We had to add a little bit of compost, otherwise everything really struggled. And we imported a lot of topsoil in order to grow some nice things like these. These came from Peter Beals in England. Last year the leafcutter bee was very busy on Madame Alfred Carrière, but this year he's left it alone, and she's done us fantastically well with loads of blooms, growing like the clappers too. Lumbago, Lagostreamia and Lantanas doing very well, but tend to get cut back by the frost, and we couldn't do without a wisteria, could we? And this is absolutely adored by the bees, and one particular very big bee I've got to find out the name of. And again, we've allowed some of the wildflowers to just jump in the borders where we're growing cultivated plants, and a lot of the cultivated plants seem to be quite happy to seed in the rubbish soil around the house. Verbena bonariensis and Helichrysums and Nicotianas are seeding all over the place. Another very exciting thing is that since we've been clearing and more wildflowers have come back and we've planted a lot of things in the garden, there's been a significant increase in the number of songbirds, which is very exciting. Also in other creatures, the place absolutely hums with bees and insects from dawn till dusk, and at night a lot of moths come in for the night-scented stocks and things we planted up in the garden. I'll show you around that later. So that's another very exciting thing about this project. And when we make a pond, which we're planning to do in the lower part of the valley, I think that's going to draw a lot more creatures as well. Here we've piped water from the dirt road outside, as it's on a hill, to collect rainwater into holding tanks and thence into some swales. We've yet to make more, so that we can get the water to sink into the land instead of skating over the surface down into the valley, which it was doing before. Nectarines and peaches doing quite well this year, only their second year. One or two of them are heavily laden with fruit. This is mimosa, extremely invasive tree that they had the bright idea of seeding all over the place some decades ago, and it's extremely invasive and blots out everything else. Looks very pretty in February. And the mimosa makes extremely good mulch. Last year was a very makeshift seed system. This year we're a little bit better organised. This is looking down to the valley. This is down in the valley as it was before we started clearing. We discovered this wonderful old well after the fire. It was hidden by brambles. Here we've done a fair bit of clearing. Here we haven't quite finished clearing yet, and this area is where the pond is going to go, which will be fed by the streams which run during the winter months. There are a lot of oaks here and a lot of these, tree of heaven, though I would tend to call it tree of hell. So again, it's extremely invasive, and of course we've had to get rid of a lot of eucalyptus and a lot of oaks which were burnt and killed off, which are regrowing. Here you can see one or two that are already growing quite well. Another eucalyptus bites the dust. This part of the valley used to be full of the so-called tree of heaven, which we cleared most of. We made a staircase going up to the upper valley garden, so-called the secret garden, because it was so full of broom and other weeds And eucalyptus, we never knew there was usable space there. In future videos I'll show you around the whole land in stages and show you what we're doing in the various areas and what we're planting, and see how things are progressing. So until next time.